police assertion was that Phoebe Handsjuk entered the garbage chute of an apartment building in Melbourne, Australia, while sleepwalking and tragically crashed inside. However, her family holds strong suspicions that her demise was, in fact, a homicide. Phoebe Handsjuk, a vibrant 24-year-old with a captivating smile, possessed talents as an enthusiastic climber and martial artist. On December 2, 2010, her life took a tragic turn in what would become one of the most perplexing chapters in Australian criminal history. According to the official case record, Phoebe ingested sleeping pills and, while sleepwalking, ascended to the 12th floor garbage chute of the apartment building where her boyfriend resided, leading to a fatal fall. Her lifeless body was discovered in a dumpster by Melbourne police, the result of a feet-first plunge. Despite the police initially classifying it as a suicide and closing the case, the coroner later labeled Phoebe Handsjuk's death a freak accident. However, Phoebe's close friends and family refused to accept such an unusual explanation for her demise. Independent experts consulted on the case deemed the incident highly improbable, given the unlikelihood of Handsjuk being able to ascend to that location on her own. The grieving mother of the young woman remains convinced that someone intentionally forced her down into that tragic situation. Amateur investigators who eagerly delve into the case frequently cast suspicion on Phoebe Handsjuk's boyfriend, a 40-year-old named Anthony Hampel, who is commonly referred to as a prominent figure in the city. As the son of the Chief Justice and the head of a well-known event agency, he enjoys a lavish lifestyle, often frequenting bars, restaurants, and nightclubs. Curiously, despite Anthony's reputation and the perception of some acquaintances that he possesses a rather volatile and emotional temperament, he has never faced official accusations or even been considered a suspect in Phoebe's tragic demise. Even more intriguingly, certain unsettling details failed to trigger a more thorough police investigation. The mysterious erasure of all of Phoebe's recent emails and the unexplained disappearance of one of her cell phones did not prompt authorities to examine the case with greater scrutiny. Do these puzzling inconsistencies raise legitimate concerns? Phoebe Handsjuk, born on May 9, 1986, in Melbourne, Australia's second-largest city, had an innate connection with nature since her early years. She held the position of the eldest among three siblings, the sole sister to her two brothers, Tom and Nicholas. Her father, Len, worked as a psychiatrist, while her mother primarily tended to their children. To outsiders, they represented an exemplary family residing in the affluent suburb of Richmond. However, at the tender age of 15, Phoebe fell into unfavorable company and became ensnared by the allure of drugs and alcohol. Her parents attempted to guide her back onto the right path, but Phoebe chose to escape from home, living with an ex-convict and his child for an 8-week period. Ultimately, her family's persistence led her to return home, where Phoebe was prescribed antidepressants and underwent addiction treatment. She successfully managed to conquer her detrimental habits. Nevertheless, a few months later, she entered into a romantic relationship with her teacher, a man twice her age. What provided Phoebe with a positive diversion from her struggles with addiction was her passion for extreme sports and martial arts. She was an almost professional rock climber, demonstrating remarkable athleticism. Despite this, she did not pursue formal education, and in 2009, at the age of 23, Phoebe worked as a hairdresser at Lindley Godfrey's studio in South Yarra. During this time, she crossed paths with Anthony Hampel, a 39-year-old gentleman who frequented the salon as one of her regular clients. Anthony, an attractive and affable event organizer, hailed from a prominent family. His father, George Hampel, served as a Supreme Court justice, and his stepmother, Felicity Hampel, held the position of circuit court judge. Phoebe was immediately captivated by his charisma. Phoebe's boss, Lindley Godfrey, initially assumed that Phoebe, who wasn't a regular client, would spend some time with him. To his surprise, Phoebe chose to go out with Hampel instead. Their relationship deepened, and after 5 months, in October 2009, Phoebe made the decision to move into Hampel's apartment on Street Gilder Road. Over the subsequent 14 months, Phoebe experienced a relapse into drinking, leading her to seek assistance from psychiatrist Joanna Young. During one of her sessions, Phoebe confided in Young about Hampel's abusive behavior and alluded to instances of physical aggression. Their relationship became increasingly strained, and in the 6 weeks leading up to her tragic demise, Phoebe initiated breakups with Anthony on 4 separate occasions. Lindley Godfrey, who shared a close bond with her employer, noted that Hampel managed to persuade Phoebe to reconcile each time, Regrettably, her fourth return marked her final one. Mysterious death in a garbage chute. On December 2, 2010, the fateful day of Phoebe's passing, Hampel Handsjuk and her father, Len, arranged to meet for dinner. Meanwhile, Phoebe intended to carry out household tasks at her boyfriend's apartment. After completing her cleaning duties and taking the dog for a walk, surveillance footage documented her return home at 11:44 a.m. She calmly ascended to her boyfriend's 12th floor unit. Unfortunately, there were no security cameras on that specific floor, leaving everything that occurred thereafter shrouded in mystery. Hampel reported his return home a little after 6:00 p.m. Upon entering through an unlocked door, he was immediately met with a disconcerting sight. Glass fragments and blood were strewn about, particularly noticeable on the keyboard and computer monitor. Phoebe, however, was conspicuously absent, although her purse, wallet, and keys remained neatly arranged on the kitchen table. Additionally, 2 empty flutes were discovered, with later analysis revealing only Phoebe's fingerprints on them. Alarmed by the situation, Anthony promptly contacted the police, who eventually located her several hours later in a ground floor trash container. Phoebe had already passed away for several hours, and her system contained a significant alcohol level of 1.6 ppm, indicating substantial intoxication. Traces of 1 or 2 tablets of potent sedative sleeping pills were also detected, which she had taken as prescribed by her doctor. According to the police investigation, it was determined that Handsjuk had descended into the garbage chute sometime between 12:03 and 18:00 on that ill-fated day. Despite the relatively narrow dimensions of the chute, measuring 37 by 22 centimeters, it was theoretically possible for a person of her size to enter it. The coroner's report indicated that she fell into the chute with her feet leading the way, her arms pinned to her body. Remarkably, it was revealed that Phoebe initially survived the fall, with the accumulated debris cushioning the impact. She even made attempts to extricate herself from the container. However, her injuries, including fractures, ultimately prevented her from escaping, leading to her demise due to blood loss. Among the perplexing aspects of the case were the peculiar bruises on Phoebe's arms, which appeared inconsistent with the notion of a fall or descent down the garbage chute. Nevertheless, the police attributed these unusual injuries to her state of being and the presumed act of sleepwalking. Late investigation. Phoebe Handsjuk's grandfather, Lorne Campbell, a retired police detective, received the devastating news at 10:00 p.m. upon arriving at the scene. He personally witnessed the situation unfold. Lorne Campbell remarked, "Right from the outset, I suspected foul play. But after 5 days of scrutinizing CCTV footage, examining all of Phoebe's electronic devices and computers, and collecting fingerprints from both the apartment and the garbage hatch, homicide detectives ultimately concluded that foul play was not involved." Their working hypothesis was that Handsjuk may have accidentally or intentionally broken some glassware, resulting in a hand injury. Subsequently, she attempted to search the internet for information on how to stop bleeding, inadvertently splattering her computer with blood in the process. Following this, she ventured out to dispose of some refuse, but dropped something of significance into a manhole, possibly under the influence of alcohol, and without fully comprehending the risks, Phoebe tried to retrieve the item from the garbage chute and tragically ended up falling inside. Another theory suggested that, in a state of somnambulism induced by alcohol and sleeping pills, she unknowingly climbed into the garbage chute. As incredulous as these scenarios may sound, the official determination was that the incident was an accident, leading to the closure of the case. Campbell expressed his disappointment with the investigation, citing various overlooked details. He noted that besides the flutes, from which he believed fingerprints were intentionally wiped, shoe tracks leading away from the apartment were disregarded. Additionally, he attempted to recreate the events by enlisting a volunteer who bore a resemblance to Phoebe. It was apparent that even for a sober and prepared individual, climbing into the garbage chute was an extraordinarily challenging feat. While it was acknowledged as technically possible, it resembled more of an intricate circus act. One of the primary difficulties, as Campbell pointed out, aside from the narrow hatch size, was that the chute door pressed against your lower back, making it pinch, and there were no handholds. It's hard to descend without assistance, and whatever was in Phoebe's system at that moment would have only compounded the difficulty. In 2013, Phoebe Handsjuk's mother spearheaded an initiative that prompted a re-examination of her daughter's untimely demise. This endeavor necessitated raising $50,000 to cover legal expenses, as that is the nature of the legal system in Australia. Phoebe's boyfriend became the focal point of the investigation. Hampel's attorney contended that Phoebe had climbed into the chute during a bout of sleepwalking, a theory corroborated by coroner Peter White. On December 10, 2014, the trial concluded in favor of Anthony Hampel. However, there existed an alternative theory unrelated to Phoebe's boyfriend. Hampel believed that his granddaughter's death might have been linked to Melbourne's drug trade, although no concrete evidence supported this claim. The prevailing sentiment among the majority of Australians remains that Hampel, owing to his connections, managed to evade culpability, fueling suspicions that he may be the perpetrator. Following Phoebe's tragic passing, Anthony embarked on a relationship with 25-year-old model Bailey Schneider. Whether it's a tragic coincidence or a deeply unsettling pattern, in 2018, Bailey was found lifeless with a cord tightly wound around her neck. What makes this even more chilling is that her death occurred mere hours after their breakup. Bailey's lifeless body was discovered at her parents' residence in Moonee Ponds. While the police officially categorized Schneider's death as a suicide, her grieving parents firmly assert that it was a murder. In the meantime, Hampel sold his apartment and entered into a joyful marriage. However, the families of both Phoebe Handsjuk and Bailey Schneider remain committed to uncovering any evidence that may suggest he is not merely an innocuous event host, but rather a cold-hearted serial killer.